What's up, duelists? It's your boy, and I am absolutely exhausted. It's 3:35 a.m. I made it back to the Airbnb after the PS5 tournament, and I just want to give you guys a deck profile of the deck I played, tournament report, tell you guys about my matches, tell you guys about cards that I was impressed with, cards I wasn't impressed with, the new tech I tried, and just give a few shout outs to some people that I was really, I don't know how to say it, really happy to meet, basically, or happy to see, I guess. Shout out to Collectible Exchange. Shout out to Alberto for having me out. Those guys are awesome. It's never a bad time here in SoCal. All the players are incredible. They're all very talented. They all have unique takes on their deck lists, and I feel heavily inspired when I'm around them to play unique lists of my own. And this is a very unique fairy list. I'll get into it in a second, kind of the concepts behind it. I've pulled concepts from a few different lists to build this one. First things first, I did go 4-2, so I bubbled. All of my matches were recorded, so those will be up sometime this week, hopefully, ideally. You guys will be able to see paper tournament action from your boy, which is a rare treat. I'll be able to go over like some of the body language stuff that I think gets lost in the dueling book recordings, which is really cool. Another really cool thing is a buddy of mine hit me up, or he didn't hit me up, he just showed up in my Discord, and I was like, no way, no way. And yeah, I hadn't talked to him in about 11 years, and he ended up coming out to this tournament. Close friend, really cool guy named Jacob. He's a very, very strong duelist. He taught me a lot about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I learned a lot. Like a lot of my playstyle and stuff comes from watching him play and like taking from him. So it was really cool to see a duelist like I look up to come to this tournament. He ended up making it all the way to fifth place, despite not having played a single game in like 11 years, which is insane. Really talented player, and it's always a treat to hang out with him. It was a blast. I did have bounty tokens, so I played a few matches after the tournament, but I didn't lose any of those matches. So step up your game, people. I got tokens I got to give away, basically. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, the way the deck works is instead of playing like towards Christia, this fairy deck, it tries to set up mole locks, which is basically you get ahead on tempo, either leveraging your removal or leveraging running your opponent out of monsters with like a bunch of generic banishes. And then once you get ahead, mole just locks your opponent out of the game if they can't special summon. And there's a couple ways you can lock your opponent out from special summoning as well. And Mole's just crazy in this deck in general. There's a couple of different like plays that I did with Mole that were insane. There was one play where I had Mole and I swung it into a known deprison, and then he deprisoned it, and then I was able to return, bring back my Mole, and then like bounce it back to my hand again, and then I had it still for the lock. It was just like crazy. I was constantly searching it off Sangin. It won me like I think almost every single match I won. I won at least one of the games thanks to Grand Mole. This is a card that I've been overlooking. You do kind of have to build around it. This list is definitely built around it with the heavier removal count, double smashing, double deprison, the Nobleman of Extermination to make sure the back row is clear, the battle traps are clear. And then, of course, we got Rhoda for extra DD Warrior Lady access. This deck is worse in the mirror because we don't have Christias, and it's worse in a few other matchups. Like, Mole is obviously terrible versus Frogs in a way that Christia is not. But, I mean, I just figured, hey, we're going to try to build a Mole version of the list because I had seen it do well in an old school profile that I had taken ideas from back in the day, and then I'd forgotten about it. And then Enraged Peacock actually had sent it to me, and I was like, oh, shit, I remember this profile. Like, it was heavily inspiring the first few lists of fairies when I was like building it. This deck does play a lower recruiter count than your average fairy list because once again, you're not really trying to summon Christia. You're just trying to like mole lock people out of the game, basically. I know the deck looks very similar, but it plays very differently. One of the key things that this list can do that the other fairy list can't do is it can basically side out all of the fairies. So like in some games, you can just side out like literally like 5 of your fairies, like Alchemist, even like Shining Angel. Like if you're scared of DDV or something like that, you can side out like 6, 7 fairies even, and you can bring in just your entire sideboard, which is like triple breaker, second MVP. This deck is just a breaker deck at the end of the day. Double Cyber Dragon, Thunder King, Chaos Sorcerer, And then if you're playing against Diva Hero, you can bring in the Polling Rogues. If you're playing against Blackwings, you can bring in the Dust Tornadoes and the Compulsory. So it's basically like a smokescreen sideboard. You side out of fairies and you side into like this Chaos Dialk stun deck, and it was insane. I think the post board games with the deck felt so good because people were like, they were siding cards that are good against fairies like Light Mirror and Deck Dev, and then they were just like not impacting that much. I got Deck Dev'd for 3, not in one of my feature matches, but I played against Kyle Jockum later on in the day after the tournament was over for the bounty token, and he Deck Dev'd me for 3, and it just didn't even matter because I had 2 breakers, and I ended up plus on the end of all the exchanges because my first breaker got a +1, then I was even, and then the second breaker got a +1. I was actually just up a card outright after being Deck Dev for 3, and it was just insane. I mean, like, this deck, it feels really good to play because you're never really like losing to any one card. Like if your opponent's going for Light Mirror, you can side around Light Mirror by siding out. Well, what I was doing was I was siding out 1 Rhoda, 1 DD Warrior Lady, 1 Shining Angel, 1 Alchemist. Like I would side like, I think I would side out the Freed in some of those instances too if my opponent had too many Light Mirrors. And then if you look at this configuration, you only have like 6 cards that are really impacted by Light Mirror, which is the 2 Shining Angels, the 2 Dialks, and the 2 Warrior Ladies. And you can bring in like the 3 breakers, the 2 dusts, and then all of a sudden you have like 5 additional outs to Light Mirror to make sure those 6 cards go off. Basically, yeah, no, this deck it felt fantastic. There are a few cards that I was a little bit unhappy with. In theory, Smashing Ground should be really good because it helps play towards the Mole or the Reaper game plan where you just like, you get ahead on board and then Mole plus Reaper or Mole or Reaper help you just close out the game with tempo or card advantage. In theory, that is really good. However, oftentimes I was just taking too much damage to ever really go for the Reaper plan. I was on the fence about Reaper. He was decent in some cases and not so good in others. It was a good dark monster. He comboed really well with Mole in one of my matches, but oftentimes leaving him in attack position was a little bit just too greedy. He was a little bit too vulnerable. I think in the future what I would do is I would actually cut a Smashing Ground for a 3rd D prison, and I would probably cut the other Smashing Ground for something else, but I'm not really sure what. Maybe a compulsory, something like that. Just another way to stay ahead on board. Maybe Brain Control. If I was to bring back in Brain Control, I would also bring in Mind Control and play a Cyber Valley. I did end up missing that card quite a bit throughout the tournament, Cyber Valley, and that's definitely something I want to find space for moving forward. I was really happy with Mole. I think that this card has a spot in almost every fairy list if you can slightly tweak your build to make it work a little bit better. You need a lot of positive tempo cards if you want to play Mole. In my list, I have Trigodia, which combos well with Mole. I have Gores. I have Call Return. I have, all of the removal spells, which are technically positive tempo because they don't take your normal. I was really happy with the 1 Nobleman of Extermination. It helped me clear back row. It was really useful tech. It was basically just a 2nd Space Typhoon. Helped me clear D prisons for my Grandma. Helped me clear like basically anything. I think at one point in one of my matches, it hit like a Pot of Avarice bluff, and I was just like super happy to trade Nobleman with Pot of Avarice. Sangan was good, but only because it found Mole. If I didn't have Mole in the deck, I don't think Sangan would be really that good. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was really nice going second into Raikou with Sangan. And it was really nice to Call of the Haunted. It made my Call of the Haunted feel pretty good. Every time I opened Call Sangan, I felt pretty safe. And just having the extra dark count too for Chaos Sorcerer post board was really important. So, yeah, I was really happy with Sangan because of the Mole. And honestly, I was just really happy with this deck in general because of the Mole. He was just goated. He almost won me like every single match. And the games he didn't win me, Breaker won me. This card was crazy. There was a game, I think game 1 versus Gladiator Beast when I was playing against it. You guys will see the matches once again. I got absolutely destroyed game 1. I just drew a bunch of like fucking Shining Angels and Dialks, and those obviously don't hold board very well against him. I got him to a point where he had to top deck and he ripped a Laquari, and I was just like, it's Jover, dude. But then game 2 and game 3, I drew like 2 breakers, both game 2 and game 3, and it was insane. Game 2, I just summoned him going first, and I'm like, 1900 monster that you can't set back row into? How do you win? I was very happy with this card. I just was super impressed. God damn it, I got timed out. You gotta be kidding me. What is going on, bruh? Bruh, dueling book trying to kick my ass off. Hold up. We're doing this. We're doing this thing. Oh, test hand time? We're getting a test hand in here. Look at this. That's a terrible hand. This hand sucked. Oh, the nobleman made it better, but this hand would have been bad. The hand would have been bad. Anyway, yeah, I was happy with the Rhoda sometimes. I found myself citing it out a lot, but that's just because it was in anticipation of Lightmare, and oftentimes it is worse post board just because you do bring in the Thunder King quite a bit. My extra deck, well, this extra deck is incorrect. I had a magical android over the Mistworm, and I only had 13 cards, but I would have played another Chimera Tech and a Red Dragon had I had those cards. I just forgot to bring them, and it wasn't a big deal. They just didn't come up at all. Legacy, I was pretty unhappy with in this build specifically because it's just negative tempo. I wanted to have a card that insulated me against Typhoon and Heavy Storm, a third card that did that, because I have Solemn and I have Road, and I just wanted a third card that helped me insulate against that. And Legacy was kind of that third card, but it was just too slow. I oftentimes just wanted a more actionable card. So I think in the future, if I was to try a build like this, what I would do is I would like cut a Smashing, cut the Legacy, and I might cut like, I don't know, another card, and I would probably play like Brain Control, Mind Control, Cyber Valley, and try that out. I think that would be a really great way to round this deck out. Yeah, I think that would be a great way to round this deck out. As far as the fairy count goes, I wasn't too unhappy with 12 fairies. There were a couple instances in which I drew Herald without another fairy, and I was like, this is annoying. But the games usually go long enough because you have so many ways to survive that you'll find another fairy. So while it did matter that I didn't always have the Herald like live in my opening hand, and I could see that mattering in the future, it definitely was live by like turns 2 or turns 3 of those games, so it didn't end up mattering too much. I don't think. I was really happy with the build. I think, oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I've played it in an 8-man sometime this week. You can check out that 8-man if you're a member, $2.99 a month. You can just click the join button. It's next to the subscribe button on YouTube, and you get one member free or member only video every week where I try out my new decks, I try out my new techs, I showcase my new ideas before I release them. So if you want like early access to stuff, members only is where that's gonna be. Yeah, and I think that just about wraps it up for this tournament recap. It's just a short little recap video. I just wanted to get you guys some coverage. I do want to shout out some of my opponents. So my first opponent was Tristan, really cool person, just immaculate style. Was playing Rescue Cat Machina. That was a cool match, really fun match. Round 2, I played against Tommy Dang, really powerful fairy player. Round 3, I played against. Oh my god, I'm going to forget. This is the second time this has happened. My brain, for some reason, has like this hole. It's like a void. It's like brain rot, like Twitch chatter brain rot. He was playing Quick Draw. He gave me an Absorbing Kid in the Sky token, and I'm just like, one of the coolest guys absolutely destroyed me with Quick Draw. I can't even remember. I remember his username is like High End Goat or something like that. I fucking can't remember. It's 3:50 a.m. at this point. Please forgive me. I know your name. If I saw you, it would hit me in the face. I know what you look like. Oh my gosh, I'm so mauled. Anyway, I'll remember it and I'll figure it out later. After that I played against, I think, I remember your last name was Garcia. I don't remember your first name, but yeah, Gladiator Beast player. And then I played against Anthony Desai, who is a top 8 Orlando competitor, and he was playing his exact list from that event, which was really cool. And then I played against Forest Ant, who's another content creator, which was really cool, and that match will be up as well. Just all awesome people that I played against. Amazing matches. A lot of unique scenarios came up in those matches. A lot of really cool stuff to cover. I can't wait to show you guys those matches. Just because I think these are some of the first, if not the first, paper tournament matches of mine that are going to be on this channel, which is kind of crazy. I'm just really excited to show those off and talk about them, because that's where I think I'm better in paper, honestly, than I am online. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just biased. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you to my opponents for all being really chill, really cool. Thank you to everyone I met for being really chill and really cool. And thank you to everyone who stuck around afterwards and played games with me and hung out with us and stuff and just had a great night. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.